What's up, everybody? This is Pi with srlounge.com, and as you can see, we have Benjamin Von Wong in our studio, and in this video, we're going to give him the rundown. We're going to go through a little interview. All right, so a little while back, we announced your Von Wong Does Europe tour, and you guys probably all remember that. You went through Europe, and tell us about this trip and like kind of what you had planned.
Well, the Von Wong Does Europe tour, in essence, was just I was looking for an excuse to travel and create some beautiful imagery, and had to figure out a way to fundraise and kind of get some money to travel and make this project possible. So I decided to launch an Indiegogo campaign, and it's basically a crowdfunding project where you offer something in return in exchange for people to help supply a little bit of money. So I managed to raise 12.5 grand in about a period of a month. It was a really last minute decision. I think the entire project just came together very spontaneously. There was no particular objective when it first started out. It just kind of evolved throughout time and it grew. I remember the first week we got about $8,000, and that was just like mind blown. It was really crazy. And you guys were the biggest entity that actually decided to support the project. Before that, it was just friends, family, fans, and whatnot. So it was a very epic moment. There's some videos online that when you probably refer back to, and I'm like jumping up in the air and we're really, really happy. So
it was pretty funny.
It was very exciting, to get some nice backing, especially from a nice big website.
We saw it, and it's kind of, I don't know if a lot of other people had done that, but I thought it was a pretty novel concept. I thought it was really new, and it was a great idea. And the crazy part about it was that you had started photography not that long prior, but you were cranking out awesome images already at that point. And so I was really excited, just as, we decided to sponsor, but I was like, I kind of wanted to see, what is Ben going to do in Europe? It was like very much a curiosity thing. And I fully kind of felt like you would just go out there and nail it. And you did. You got some amazing images out in Europe. And tell me about the overall trip, because I know you guys raised quite a bit of money from Indiegogo, but was it enough to cover the entire trip? These things are really expensive.
Well,
right?
we raised 12.5 grand on paper, so that looks quite nice. But in reality, we had the Indiegogo funds that took a chunk out. We had PayPal that took a chunk out. We have conversion rates that took a chunk out. And then past that, the entire trip was actually quite expensive. So, we didn't look at it so much from a profit perspective. We just looked at it, okay, we just need to make this trip happen, and help us however you can. And when we're putting together like the prize packages, like the gifts that I wanted to give, we didn't really think about, once again, it wasn't about money. It was about what can we give back to people. So for example, the Polaroids that we decided to offer to people that gave anything more than $20 actually cost us almost $10 each to shoot, to mail, to package.
That's crazy.
To send out. So the profit margins were relatively small. So I think overall we definitely passed what we're supposed to spend. I think we hit about 16 grand
from the cost of the trip.
From the cost that we did crash a car though, so
that hurts a little bit in the cost.
Yeah, but that got reimbursed. So I think we're probably down to about 14,500 or something.
Okay.
In terms of actual cost, but we're not really done costs yet. For example, one of the things we promised to produce was a book. So those still need to be bought and shipped out. So those costs are going to keep adding on as we finalize the project.
I talk about this stuff not because it's not necessarily directly related to photography, but it's really the business side of things. And I think it's interesting for everybody to know just how much how much time and how much resources and capital are required to put these projects together. Because people look at them and they go, oh my gosh, Ben got $12,000 to go to Europe. He's the luckiest guy in the world, but dude, it was a lot of work. I remember
it was a lot of work. We didn't sleep.
Yeah, I saw you online literally like at every night, a time of day, like you were just cranking through images. When you weren't online, you were shooting. When you weren't shooting, you were traveling.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to the DVD, which should be out sometime soon. We're
hoping within the next 2 months or so. It's gotten a bit complicated because Erwin, the videographer, he's actually off in France because he got a brand new baby.
Oh, wow. Congratulations, Erwin, if you're watching this.
So he's busy taking care of this baby and, also keeping his life going. He's back in school. He's finishing things up. So trying to juggle that. So normal life and the DVD project is actually a bigger... it's bigger than we anticipated. We thought it was just going to be easy, that all we needed to do was just film a couple of things and just toss it all together and we're done and ready to go. And then it turns out that I think we have We have like 3 terabytes of footage to kind of
Oh,
sift
man.
through, organize, and present in a cohesive manner.
Yeah.
So quite challenging.
I'm excited though, because every one of the behind the scenes videos that you've released has been very informative. Has been, I mean, from the technical side, you teach what you're doing, you show what you're doing, and then from the actual, the image side, you're actually pulling off some pretty incredible images, which is really cool. And it seems like since that Europe tour, you've been working with DOS a lot, right? With doing a lot more fire effects. At least I see a lot more fire in your work now.
Well, recently I just did another Europe tour, but this time it was I had to go back to Europe to meet up with Erwin to finish up some interviews. So once again needed to figure out a way to fund that. So, and this time it was to just travel around Europe and do some teaching. So that meant that I was going to be passing by Paris. So I picked up Das along the way, and then we did 2 shoots together in Paris, and then he came over here to LA with me, and we did a couple more stuff over here. So in the most recent time frame, there's been a lot of fire coming out, just because I got a pyrotech with me and just got to use him.
Fire in the literal sense. You're also on fire as far as your career. I mean, you're kind of, I'll say, newer to photography. You started, I mean, professionally back in January of last year, right?
Well, I quit on the 15th of January.
Okay.
And I didn't really launch myself into it because I had some obligations. So
yeah,
the deal with my parents was that I quit my job to do a master's in business administration. So I did the GMAT.
Yeah.
So that kind of occupied me for about 2.5 months.
That was like you need to get a safety net, Ben.
No, well, it was a deal. I said, you know what, I'm going to quit engineering to do an MBA.
Okay.
And then I did my GMAT, and then I kind of felt like, and then I started negotiating with them. I was like, it's not the right time for me to do an MBA, and the GMAT's good for 4 years, 5 years, and it would be really a shame if I didn't push this photography thing a little bit farther. So I bought myself some time, and they kind of gave me a year to get things together, and I think it's going quite well so far. The year's not up yet. So I got into a loophole over there. My mom's still waiting for me to get a real job though.
A real job. Well, speaking of real jobs, I mean, you're in LA because you got your first major job.
Yeah.
And it's pretty incredible for someone that has started out to go so far in such a short period of time. One of the things I want to talk about is just how this has been. I mean, how has it been starting out and then now shooting that first major client? How have things changed from doing your own shoots to actually having that big shoot?
I think the shoot process definitely changes. Everything is a lot slower. Everything is a lot more planned. There are a lot more steps and a lot of more people to kind of go through. The bigger the shoots get, the more people that get involved. You have multiple levels of clients, and it definitely slows down the process. But at the same time, you have a lot more at your disposition. So you have a lot more resources. You have suddenly everything. Suddenly things that you hadn't imagined that could be possible suddenly become possible. At the same time, other things become more complicated, so I can't just break into an abandoned building and just whip things out, because now there are a whole bunch of legal ramifications.
Yeah.
So I mean, it definitely changes the dynamics of things. I mean, at the same time, I'm still doing my creative stuff on the side. I still have all levels of contracts. I still have the smaller ones. I still have the medium-sized ones. So,
do you feel like you become more of a manager on these bigger jobs than?
Well, actually, I just signed my first agent over in Toronto, Susie Johnson and Associates. So that she's actually been taking care of that in this whole in this big commercial job. So she's taken a lot of the management aspect out of it, which to me is just great, because then I can just focus on the shooting part of things.
Yeah. I kind of mean when you're like on set and you just have, when you're on set, I mean, now you, like you said, you have so many people at your disposal. Does that get kind of overwhelming at times, just figuring out, okay, you need to be in this position, you need to be doing this, you need to...
Well, I'm used to managing like 25 people on my standard my standard creative shoots. Yeah, my small shoots are actually really, really big, because I tend to invite a lot of people to participate. So no, it's pretty much the same. If anything, it's easier because rather than dealing with all levels of people from the unexperienced to the very experienced, here you have a team of professionals. Yeah. So you can really, you just open your mouth and they're there. You can have my camera set up. I can just rattle out the settings and they'll be ready to go. Yeah. I can set up multiple cameras. Just mention the lighting, things that I missed. There's someone that's going to be there to catch it. It's got a very easy flow to it. So
that's awesome.
If anything, yeah, it's definitely easier. No problems.
But I think a big part of that was just that, I mean, you've done so much training on your own with these own personal shoots. I mean, your own personal shoots are kind of ridiculous too. Like you have like, I watch the behind the scenes videos. I'm like, this is Ben's personal shoot, and there's like 20 people, and this is like this thing, I don't understand. And then the images you get are pretty incredible too. So I think that's a very important fact to mention to everybody, that your training ground was very sufficient for what you're doing. It wasn't like you were just going out and taking a model with one assistant and doing a couple shots and putting in your portfolio. You're actually doing, when you're doing your practice stuff, you're doing something that's very similar to what you're doing with these bigger clients.
I mean, I never thought of it that way. It wasn't like I'm going to train so that when it happens, I'm going to be ready. It's just like, I want to do this epic thing and I need 50 people for it to happen. All right, let's find the 50 people and then put it together.
Yeah, because I kind of like freak out when I plan shoots. I'm just like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this. Can someone else please do this? Like, I don't want to deal with so many things going on. And frankly, if you put me in that situation, I'll probably be very uncomfortable dealing with so many variables. So I think that's a big thing, is that experience. But when you approach these shoots for these clients, what has changed basically from, let's say you plan your own shoot on your own and you kind of have the creative freedom to do whatever you want. Do you find that that's changed a lot with these bigger jobs that you're getting, where the clients come to you, they kind of have a better idea of what they want and you're kind of just executing it? Or do you feel like they're giving you a lot of creative liberty?
It depends on the client. I mean, it's one of those things where if, it really depends on the personality of the client and how many, like, I mean, there's usually multiple levels of clients. So, for example, the art director, as long as the guy ordering it from the art director is happy, then he could be more or less strict depending on how focused on his vision it is, you know, kind of a thing. So it really depends on the client. I mean,
you mentioned earlier that now you have an agent. Now, that's not necessarily an easy thing to do. What did you do to go about getting an agent, or just kind of fall in your lap, or how did that happen?
Yeah, it's a kind of a funny story. I had a friend who she had a friend who worked in an advertisement agency, and she proposed that I come in and present my portfolio to these guys for like a 5 assets, which is like, you know, people get wine and cheese, and you just present a couple of pieces of your work, and people come in and ask you questions. And someone there had liked my work, contacted another lady who and said, you know what, I think your work's amazing. I absolutely want my friend to represent you. Great. So I go in there and I sit down and talk with this agent. Things seem to go well, and she wants to represent me and whatnot. And this was over in, I think, March or April. And she says, give it a month, think about how you feel about it. 1 month later, I say, sure, let's go for it. And I send her some images. She starts choosing some portfolio stuff and whatnot. And then I don't know what happens as time continues, like communications kind of start oscillating, and I had my Europe tour, and she wasn't very involved in it. I think for personal reasons or because of workload reasons, and nothing quite happened. And eventually, with this lady, she just ended up by announcing that she didn't feel that I was ready to be represented because she didn't know how to fit me into the commercial market, because my stuff is a bit crazy and I have kind of weird approach to photography in general. So, but before she announced that, I told her that I was visiting Toronto, and she had mentioned that she had an agent. She had a friend that was also an agent over there, and I told her I'm gonna be in town. Do you think you can contact her and schedule a meetup and whatnot? So she actually did that, and that's it. So I just walked into Susie's office, and we talked for about 4 hours. She just actually took 4 hours just to ask me a bunch of questions. What were my plans? Where was I going with photography? What was my vision about things? And from there, she just brainstormed, I think, for a good 2 months on what to do with me, since I'm really heavy on the social media. I produce these behind the scenes. I'm very active online. I have like a huge social media presence, which is not a commercial photography thing. And on the flip side, I'm not really in very many magazines. I haven't been published that much. I haven't done. I don't have any regular like commercial clients, and I don't fall under fashion editorial or anything. I kind of just
Wong style.
Yeah, I got my own style, and I'm coming in with this whole new approach. So it took a little bit of time, and then we decided on how we were going to plan our launch material, and that's where we came up with the Red Mistress video, which is one of my latest videos with a lot of how to create shutter drag, some nice light streaks with some dancers, and directed a video in collaboration with Filler magazine. So they helped us launch our first project together, and it was quite interesting of an experience because I had to direct a video. I had to produce stills. We had a social media push. We had the behind the scenes videos. We actually have multiple versions for the magazine. So it was quite interesting to get all these elements and put together like one big job that we just presented, and it got some pretty nice feedback. I think almost 15,000 views on the behind the scenes.
That's awesome.
And just dipping my hands in the whole video directing part of things.
Yeah.
Since I had found the location.
Yeah.
Got the music custom composed, got the choreography custom designed, got the dancers, got the entire piece put together. So
yeah, that's a really cool video. We'll throw up the link too, so you guys can check it out. But it's a very interesting process that you went through in finding your agent, because it's actually like kind of 100% different from the typical stories that I hear. Yeah. Most of the time, what I hear is that people prepare their print work and then they send off these booklets to agents. Yeah. And most of the responses that my friends get is that your work is too similar to other people. Like they can't find a niche, essentially. Okay. Where like they're producing work that's amazing, it's professional, it looks awesome, but they don't necessarily have their own style or flair yet. It's more like they just kind of fit into this homogenous group of photos. Mm. I almost feel like while they had trouble maybe finding a niche or where they'd fit you, it was a better approach because you were so different from everybody else. It was like, okay, well, we have to think and put our minds together and say, okay, where does Ben best fit? But at least you're not being compared to other people. You have a social media presence. You create amazing, unique work, which, like you said, it's kind of hard to define the style because I see some editorial in it. I see some fashion in it. I kind of see a mixture of everything in your work. And so I think that approach is almost a better approach than like the overly clean, homogenous group of photos that you just submit to them. Did you have anything in print, or like when you went to the agent, did you have anything?
No, I had an iPad.
You had an iPad?
Yeah. No, I don't really
Saving
print my
trees.
work out.
Ben is environmentally friendly.
It costs too much to print, honestly, and I generate work so fast. Yeah. I have new images every month that are worthy to be put inside my portfolio. So if I printed a book, it'd just be constantly like switched out. It costs too much, and it's just I think my current portfolio on my website has 77 images, and they all daily range from like one side of the spectrum to the other. So it's hard to fit in. I think the strategy at the moment is to enter the commercial market, because anything that I do could be kind of flipped over into a commercial context. Yeah, it could be used to sell something, an idea, a motivation, a story, because they kind of tell stories. So that I think is the current strategy.
Now I want to go back for 1 second, just because this is a very unique thing to me, is that given how little, not how little, but given how you kind of gotten into this industry so quickly, I want to know how you progressed your technique so fast over such a short period of time. I mean, what do you feel like there's any major thing that was it just going out and doing these shoots and figuring out what's going on set? Was it following a particular book or a person, or what was it that basically helped you to establish that technique and skill so quickly?
I think it's a combination of things. I guess my earlier life so far has been shaped by breakups. So I started photography because of a breakup. The next time I got into a breakup, I did a 365 project for about 100 days, which really helped me push out shots quite regularly. And then the breakup after that was when I started doing behind the scenes videos. So
you are where you are today because of breakups.
Yeah, and then this most recent breakup is when I went to Europe. So
you can find motivation anywhere, guys.
So I mean that it's not a really but I mean, I think from a purely photography standpoint, the easy answer is just say practice makes perfect. That's definitely one thing. The more you get out there and shoot, the better you're gonna get. The second thing is also to shoot what you like, shoot what you enjoy doing, and then suddenly everything you do doesn't really feel like work. I've never strategized. That's not probably the right way to say it. I mean, I think about the future. I think about where I would like to be and all that, and that's in the back of my mind. But when it comes down to the actual shoot and the actual production, when I'm developing a concept, I don't necessarily go down and figure out how I can sell these images. So people will sometimes put 6 months together. They'll present a package that's complete, and they want to run it in this magazine, this website, this thing, and they're going to present it, and they're going to apply for a grant, and they're going to get the permissions, and it's this really long, tedious process, and it's very, very focused. And sometimes it works great. I mean, you look at someone like Kirsty Mitchell, who spent 3 years to make one series of images, and it just blows your mind away. But it's something that I don't really have the focus to at the moment. So I just throw myself out there, and I just take on whatever projects that I find personally inspiring that interest me. Like at the moment, I don't really do shoots anymore without behind the scene videos, because the same images get less visibility, for one.
Yeah.
And then the same images also don't impact as many people, because I don't have a vessel to convey the story that's behind it. Similarly, if the shots have been done before, if they're too common, then I don't really know then I won't take that approach. I won't try to do it. So I've been approached to do zombies many times, and I'm like, well, there's no point in doing it. I've done it before, and I don't want to do zombies anymore. So it's just, I mean, there's a certain amount of focus that goes into what I want to do, but for me, it's just really, you have to have fun, you have to push yourself, and then as you go forward, I'm extremely self-critical. I can look at my work and hate a whole bunch of things about it.
I think most good artists are very self-critical.
I still put them out there, and it's something that I've done. It's something that a lot of people have put effort into. So it has to be completed. It has to be put out in a nice fashion. And then from there, I think the idea is to learn from it and see, okay, well, how can I take this and improve upon it and build upon it and just keep going. So there's a lot of reflection, and also I think teaching has helped a lot. Something I never really considered, but when you're forced to sit down and explain why you did something and how you did it, you learn.
Oh, absolutely.
This forces that introspection to be like, well, why did I do it? What went wrong, or whatnot? It's very powerful. So when you're trying to explain something to somebody and you have to put these thoughts into words, then there's an additional like learning process. So you can build upon many levels by just by doing.
I love it. And so, I mean, from what I get is that when you've already done a concept, like you said, you already did zombies, you don't necessarily go out and try and do that concept again, unless I'm sure if someone's paying you and they're like, I want zombies, Ben, you're probably going to go do zombies.
Well, if it's a paid contract, and just like everything else, you have a certain amount of leeway. If they say zombies, I can be like, you know what, zombies been kind of done before. Like, why don't we do something a little bit more? Like, why don't we push in a different direction? Why don't we
Girl
make
zombies.
these? Yeah, exactly. I think one of the things I wanted to try was zombies playing football. Girl zombies playing football.
That would be awesome.
Right? But like, it's like kind of taking the same thing but making it a different twist and building upon it. So it's not, you don't just cancel it. You don't cancel possibilities.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's some things that are repeatable. It's like fire.
Yeah.
There's fire in like a whole bunch of stuff that I do, but every time, if it's done, okay, well, how can I make it better? How can I push myself further? Because if it's just to do the same thing, then there's no point in doing it again.
Sure.
And similarly, since I continuously produce, there's a certain expectation for me to do better each time. So I have the whole pressure of these 15,000 fans looking down upon me and saying like, the next one better be awesome too.
One day we'll talk about your work like Anne Leibovitz's, where she puts out something, we're like, that's crap. And you're like, hey, that's actually really good. It's just you're comparing it to her previous body of work and you don't like it as much. But no, that's really cool. That I like that you take on these different projects, and I think that that's probably the main thing that I would say, if I were to pinpoint one thing, has been the source of your growth, is because every one of the projects that I look at, every single behind the scenes that I've seen you do, has always involved a different technical element. And I look back at that water scene. You did that underwater shoot.
Not so the water demons?
Yeah, the water
demons.
demons.
I suspended the camera over there.
That was a very technical shoot. I mean, you had them in the water, you were dealing with light and basically specular highlights coming through, like rays coming through water and all this kind of stuff. And I don't think you'd done that before, right? But you pulled it off amazingly well. So it seems like when you're going into the shoots, you're taking on these different subjects, you're tackling them, you're spending time figuring out what's going on and adjusting in situations. Can you talk about that shoot a little bit? And like, when you first approached it, did everything go as expected, or was it like you were constantly making adjustments in that?
The water demon shoot? Yeah, that one. You're talking about the glow in the dark one?
Yep.
Yeah. No, it didn't go as planned at all. I was extremely stressed the entire day for that shoot. Everything was behind schedule, and the model actually had a deadline which she had to leave.
Oh,
so
man.
we had a time cap. So one of the things, for example, was that we had rented some lights that we thought were UV, but in reality weren't UV. They were they were just kind of gelled purple, so really strong shade of purple, but they weren't pure UV.
I see.
That meant that all the light turned out purple instead of being black.
Yeah.
So we actually switched those out in the middle of the shoot.
That's a huge issue to run into in the middle of a shoot.
Yeah, in the middle of a shoot. So what we dealt with it, planned so to keep up, to remove the downtime, we just practiced poses and whatnot. In the meantime, as we sent someone else to go get some of the stuff, we had to triggering the camera was actually quite tough. Yes, we had a D4, but being able to focus with the trigger properly, since it's being suspended over the water, was extremely complicated. Making sure that focus was right, really, really tough. The water was becoming gradually more and more opaque as we're shooting, because the body paint was rubbing off into the water, so that also caused a whole bunch of issues. We had to figure out how the models wouldn't drown, because they would get tangled up in in their clothing, because these are kind of like these big pieces of cloth, and
flowing,
just kind of like floating around. Simple things like posing with water was actually quite complicated. So water would go up in their noses, so they couldn't actually maintain any kind of pose with a chin down. So we put earplugs in their noses, and this is stuff that we all had to figure out and deal with like the day of the shoot, right? And no one needs to know any of this in the behind the scenes. The idea behind the scenes, anyways, is not to talk about how complicated things are, and like it's a fun experience. It's something where we everyone's sharing this moment together, and the idea is to inspire and just to say, you know what, guys, we did something pretty cool, and you should go out there and do something better, or get inspired by this and try it out. So it's not so much about talking about how things didn't work out as much. I do talk about the challenges from time to time, but the ones that I find relevant, for example, when in Europe, in the Wong Does Europe tour, where we had the tourists coming in the shot, that, and then you can talk about those. Those are things that people encounter on a regular basis, so it's easy talking about using nose plugs.
Not the sexiest thing in the world, but
I'm sure there's a better solution than putting like earplugs in the nose. For one, it makes your nostrils really huge. For two, they kind of stick out on the bottom of it, even if you cut them down. And they're not perfectly watertight, so sometimes it actually does slip through. So
you don't want them to inhale them. I don't know if they would go anywhere, but I think it's a great thing to know what these things are, because the next time, like, you look at it and you go, there are all these things that went wrong. But now when I say, hey, Ben, come and do this underwater shoot for us, you would literally just understand, okay, from this last shoot, I know that we're going to have these issues, and you'd be prepared for that. There's so many things that
a little bit more learned.
A little bit more prepared. Yeah. There's so many things that you'd learn from a shoot from like that. And really, it's regardless of, you created amazing photos from that. We'll show those photos, but regardless of whether or not you got those photos, just going out and trying it would have meant that the next time you went out and did it would have been that much better. And so I think that's one of the main takeaways is stop acquiring gear. Everybody's got gas. Gear acquisition syndrome. We've all got gas. Just go out and start shooting with it and try these different editorial shoots, plan out, do what Ben does. Oh,
it's just getting out there. I mean, I failed a bunch of shoots, and actually some of them are online. If you look at the first time I tried to do fire.
The motorcycle one, right?
Yeah, the motorcycle one. It's a 15-minute long video, and it just goes from me being extremely excited to me being extremely depressed at the end of the video. Because it just wouldn't work.
It was the funniest thing. I was like watching the interview, like, I didn't get what I wanted to get today. Wasn't a good day, but here's the images anyway.
But then 6 months later, when I went to Europe and I did this again, it worked out spectacularly.
But the images were actually still good. When I was looking at them, I'm like, dude, those are actually still really good images.
They're okay. But I'm really hard on myself. But do you know how Das and I met?
I don't.
He saw my video on YouTube, and he wrote to me, he said, video's great, but your fire pictures suck. When you come to Paris, we should do some real pictures together. And I said,
that's rad.
And I replied, you know what, you're right, and I can definitely do better, and we should meet. And I think from that conversation, he was like, oh, because usually when somebody gets criticized on the internet, they tend to be like, to dismiss, defensive, or whatever. And I was just like, yeah, he saw it. He saw that it sucked. Why did? And that was cool, because I could see, he's a professional fire artist, so for him the flame has this whole poetic background to it.
Yeah. Well, it was very. I saw that video, and I love seeing things like that, dude, because it's very humanizing. I mean, in photography, there's so many egos that go around, and so many, like, when I saw that, I just thought I love this guy. Like at the end of his video, he's just like, I hate it. I don't like it. And I'm like, it's so humanizing, to realize that, hey, we're all just people, and like we go out and we all have expectations, and sometimes it just doesn't meet your expectations. But regardless, every one of these shoots have just been, they're always going to be these learning experiences, and they're always going to make your next shoot that much better.
Yeah.
And because of that, you hooked up with Dawson.
Exactly. I think at a certain point in time too, you can't really like you said, you thought the images were quite decent. You at a certain point in time, if you keep getting out there and you keep trying and you keep gathering all these experiences, you can't really fail anymore.
Yeah.
Because you have this nice technical cushion where whatever comes your way, you can deal with it.
Yeah.
So I can show up in a place and have my flashes not working. I can show up in a place with my with a couple lenses I had forgotten to bring or whatever, but I will still be able to pull off the shoot.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing restrictive about it. Like if I didn't have a tripod, then I could figure out a way to use like cardboard boxes and use that instead. Or like it's just this very constant problem solving process. And when you get tossed into a situation where you really where you've already dealt with so much stuff where things aren't always organized, and it just works out.
Yeah.
So like any wedding you go to by now, you've done, I don't know, 50, 100.
Couple
hundred. Any wedding you go to, doesn't matter what happens a day, whether the bride's dress is torn, whether she's pissed off, whether her mom died the same day. I hope it never happened, but it's like no matter what happens, you can still manage to come up with the story to tell.
No, exactly.
It's the way it is.
If you were to see the behind the scenes on a wedding day, it'd be the exact same thing of what you described. This goes wrong, this goes wrong, this goes wrong, but you've done so many that you just know how to go around it and work around it.
Yeah.
And it could be a technical issue, it could be an emotional issue, it could be whatever it is. You always need to be able to work around it. And Joel Grimes has kind of a very similar approach. We interviewed him not too long back, and he mentioned that for his learning, he plans an editorial shoot every week. He does one personal shoot every single week, regardless of what he's doing, commercially. So I thought that was really interesting to know that someone so established and experienced is still doing these every single week, and that's more than I do, like as far as my personal shoots. I mean, I don't do a personal shoot every single week, so it's really impressive. Now, I wanted to ask you one question, which is, how have you enjoy, obviously you're passionate about photography. How has it been now being in the business of photography?
I don't think I follow the traditional model of a photographer. I haven't followed the same path. I haven't gone to school. I haven't assisted a photographer. I just go out there and I do what I love. Mm-hmm. And it so happens that now people want to pay me to do what I love. So
it hasn't been a big...
the management aspect has definitely increased. As my shoots go larger and larger, there's a lot more elements to juggle. So mm-hmm. I do spend more and more time in front of the computer, emailing or Facebooking rather than actually editing. Mm-hmm. It gets annoying at times, but right now I found my agent, and I'm really hoping that she can take care of of all this organization aspect of the bigger contracts, so that I can focus on both the creation, editing, and putting together my own personal projects. So I'm hoping to kind of create a slight divide in terms of the more in the organizational and managerial part of things, mm-hmm. Especially on the professional aspect, because I think there's a lot to it gets slightly overwhelming. But as far as like shifts in perception on the market, not really. It's kind of exactly what I expected it to be.
Mm-hmm. What I love about that is that you're doing what you love, and it just, like you said, I'm doing what I love, and it just so happens that people are paying me for it now. Because I think a lot of times when people jump into photography, they're doing photography because they enjoy it as a hobby and as just something to do on the side. But either they're not truly passionate about photography, or they just aren't truly passionate about business or anything. But when they jump into it, now that it's a money-making thing, now that they have to pay the bills, it becomes much less enjoyable. Yeah. And I think if you can walk away with that and say, hey, as long as I'm doing what I love, whether it's photography or any other form of art or being an accountant or whatever it is that you're doing, as long as it's what you love, I think there's always going to be someone there that's going to pay you for it, because you're going to be naturally good at it.
Yeah. But there's also different ways of looking at it. I mean, photography is such a large thing. I mean, it's also about being open-minded. If suddenly you just want to, there's fine arts, and then you could just be doing calendars, or you could be selling prints, you could be selling to stock agencies. In my case, I wanted to travel, so workshops work very well. I get to travel, I get to meet new people, because traveling, meeting people, collaborating with different artists, all this can happen, and I can get paid for it when I'm giving a workshop. So then suddenly I get the opportunity to go and visit. Like this time around, I went to Rennes, Toulouse, Amsterdam, Paris, and London. And what paid for that was me teaching workshops, which really comes from the fact that I have done so much free stuff in the past, because even now I'm still putting together behind the scene videos where I just kind of put things out there and give information out for free, which builds a following that can then be monetized. In the sense that I'm not doing it to monetize, but I do it because I love it, and then eventually when I do need to get something back in return, then there's suddenly a little bit more options. So rather than being focused on the traditional model, which
got to make money type thing.
Yeah, which is just, okay, well, I need to meet the bills, I need to go there. It's really easier to just focus on always. And let's say hypothetically you're stuck in this world where you need to do your family pictures every week to pay the bills, but then reserve some time for yourself to to keep creating those stuff. It's like having a day job, so separate the two. You have your day job and then you have your night job. So you have your day job, you deal with that and do the rest. And then if you're still you're not able to make the bills, either one, you're not good enough, meaning start getting better, work on it, get to know the market. Maybe you're antiquated, maybe you need to start thinking things in a different way, or maybe you're just really, really bad at business. So get someone to help you with that. Like, are you charging enough? Do you have a good business model? Maybe you're just doing things completely the wrong way.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
nobody can hire you if they don't see your images, right? It doesn't matter how great of images you're creating. If it doesn't get in front of people, it's not going to do much good. But I love your approach, and I think it's the exact approach that photographers need to adopt. I mean, that's really along with my philosophy into it too, as well. So I want to ask one last question. This is kind of for the gearheads out there, because we do have a lot of them, even though we have gas and we deal with it. All right. So if I had to say, Ben, you have one camera and one lens to shoot with, what would it be? I know it really doesn't matter, because you could create your images on anything. But...
Yeah, I mean, I really, really like the D800 I have. I have a D800E, and between the 800 and the E, I think it's absolutely the same thing. I just went for the E because it sounded cooler. Actually, might stay with the D800 just because I've been starting to do video a lot. So D800.
It's a beautiful camera.
As for lens, it'd be the 24-70. It's the most versatile. I mean, I love the 85-1.4. Because that's my favorite lens from a portrait perspective. But from a practical standpoint, the 24-70 covers the range of that you would normally need.
You know, I don't know if it's... I shoot primarily Canon, and we've had the 24-70 Mark I for a long time. And I know a lot of Nikon users have sworn by the 24-70, and I always felt like my 24-70 gave me very subpar images until I recently got the 24-70 Mark II. Now, it doesn't have IS, which is a big downside because it does cost like $2,400 for a lens without IS. But now the image quality is actually, I think, on par with the Nikon 24-70. Since I've gotten the Mark II, it's become one of my favorite lenses again. So it is a great lens. It's so versatile, from going from wide to tight. You can go from portrait to whatever. It's a great...
But then I probably would never end. I'm never going to be with one lens and one camera.
Yeah, you would never.
I have my Think Tank International right now. And in there, I've managed to stuff 2 camera bodies, 5 lenses, 4 speed lights, and a microphone kit, and 2 backup hard drives, and a tripod.
Inside of a bag? You have like a small tripod?
I have a really small Siri tripod. It's like, when you collapse it down, it's like this big. You can
That's
put it in a
crazy.
backpack. It's a five section carbon fiber.
I should have had one of those for my HDR. I was
It's great.
touring around with this 15-pound tripod on my back.
Well, because you're never going to bring it around. So I figured get a small one, light one. Okay, it's not the most stable, not the most durable if you ding it too much, but you're sure you're going to have it. So
yeah. Well, that's awesome, dude.
and a lens baby kit. I can actually stack a lens baby kit on top of my 7200. I have this entire kit.
Now, quick question about that. I dig. We have a lens baby kit too, and I dig it. But do you find that you're shooting a lot with it, or it's really more of a novelty lens? So like you can't.
Actually, I discovered something during one of my workshops with the lens baby, and I'm gonna put together a video. One thing that I found was really cool is that it can increase. Well, it's what it does, right? It increases the perceived depth.
Yeah.
And that can be used in certain ways. I don't know if did you see the hair video, the epic hair video that I made? So I made an epic hair video about my hair with fire, flour, and eggs.
Yeah.
And there's this one really nice
Which I
scene.
hope is not how you actually do your hair, by the way.
No, but there's this one scene where I swirl my hair in like kind of a circle, and you have this really like almost angelic halo around it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that was with the Lens Baby.
Oh, that's really cool.
So yeah, I'm gonna make a post about it on using the fact that it can increase perceived depth, that whole miniature effect.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
actually using that in a more like in a studio setting actually.
That's really cool. Yeah.
But no, it's not a lens I would use on a daily basis. Like, it's too much trouble. I'm an autofocus guy. My eyes are shit. I'm
The
Asian.
second person to come in and be like, I don't have very good eyes, but I'm a photographer. Joel Grimes, he's colorblind.
Yeah.
And I'm partially colorblind, and you have crappy eyes, and yet
I'm
all
Asian.
of us great.
Like, I think 70% of the Asian population has glasses. Like,
Really?
Yeah. I have
didn't know
minus 7.0 vision.
Wow, that's crazy, dude.
Yeah,
Well, I appreciate you taking time out of your day, dude, to come down here. And
no, it was a pleasure.
yeah, it's great having you. You're a humble person. You're extremely good at photography, and it's just been awesome having you in the studio. So
Sweet.
thanks a lot, man.
No, thank you for your time too.
Absolutely.
And, thanks for supporting the Von Wong Does Europe tour and believing in it.
Of course, and we'll keep you guys posted on everything Von Wong whenever Ben comes out with new videos. So we'll see you guys soon.